Thank you for tuning in, everybody. This is One Hell of a Fall, Law and Pandemic, and this is pretty much me telling you my starter series on how I got to my journey on getting to law school with a little bit of personal adversity intertwined within the mix. So if you were like me, there's going to be circumstances to where it will inhibit you in order to do the things that you want to do moving forward. And for one of those things, myself, that was getting into law school. And I knew I wanted to get into law school once I knew I had to overcome some of the challenges and burdens that would come across my path that would pretty much discourage you from doing something better, or coming across individuals that would tell you that you couldn't do something more than what you're doing now. And I use that as a bit of encouragement to prove them wrong, but at the same time, not go out my way to prove something that I didn't need to. So, with a quick recap of how I actually got here, it started with my acceptance letter. And with my acceptance letter, I got it around Thanksgiving time before I actually graduated my undergrad. So, it was when I was interning at Congressman Mark Vesey's office, which I'm forever grateful for being able to have that opportunity in order to present my skills in the political environment as well. And when I told the staff, because I remember receiving it through an email, and it was almost surreal on how I actually came across it and just how I thought about it in nature. Because you go through so much challenges in life, and then once you're able to hit a milestone to where things can become that much more better, then seize that opportunity in order to do that. If you can't, then take a look at what you actually need to do in order to further those goals, because everything doesn't have to happen at a drop of a dime. It just needs to happen on time. And when I was there, I ended up telling the staff, Julian and Miss Jennifer and Miss Ann, they showed the utmost support, and they actually had more excitement than I have, because for me, I was excited, but I knew it was an opportunity in order to do something better to actually reach my end goal. But for them, it was just a starter point of somebody actually achieving something greater than what they probably may actually come across. And that way, when you have that type of encouragement where people actually look to you as knowing that you can do something better, they're not going to do nothing but support that. And if somebody is not supporting that, then you might need to stay away from them temporarily or permanently, however you want to, at your discretion. Now, I remember calling my mom, and my mom was pretty much like how I am ideally with exciting news, right? So she was actually more so on the standpoint of, hey, now you got the opportunity to do what you want to do, and that's to help others. All in all, help provide representation for those who may not have it at the time, or may have probably be misrepresented because somebody doesn't really care about their personal circumstances as much as I possibly would. And I think that's a big, huge accomplishment, or I think that's a big thing when people are actually choosing on who they want to be represented by. And when I told her, she was pretty much like, this is what you've done, this is what you accomplished, this is how things could get better for just you as a person. So use that in order to grow, and don't look back. Just keep going and keep growing and keep your focus. And that's kind of like how I took it when I received the letter as well. And when I told my dad was pretty much more excited than anybody. He was actually the person who told everybody when I was actually trying to just keep it under wraps and just tell people as I moved along when we crossed paths. But when I told him, it was immediate pick up the phone, let's tell everybody, and then everybody was able to kind of congratulate me from just the inner circle of those who are close to us, but not so much like as far as like everybody. And luckily, he's not engaged on social media, or it would have been worse. I would have had everybody blowing me up. So, in regards to that, I remember traveling to Abilene because I was going there for Thanksgiving, and my uncle was one of the main contributors for me getting into law school. And I remember telling him, and he was more so ecstatic than anything, to where his eyes got watered, like he could actually cry at that moment. And I think that's just a heartfelt moment to know that you're doing something that is going to empower others and lead by example. And for me, that's huge, especially with having children. I embrace leading by example. And he just pretty much like shook my hand, told me whatever is needed, make sure I reach out, establish that connection with whatever I need to, so that way you have that support system surrounding you that's going to encourage you to do better. Even in times where you might not even feel as motivated to keep going. Remember your focus, write it down, put it on your forehead, put it on your mirror, however you need to keep your focus. And so with with that, I remember I wanted to actually kind of replicate the intensity of law school, but I don't think nothing could really prepare you for law school once you're actually in there. So I remember taking master courses to see like, okay, I already graduated from undergrad. Now let me see how I can kind of do within a higher educational environment. And once I was able to do that, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it wasn't that much more difficult, but it definitely had like its challenges and like other facets of it, like writing a longer paper or just more of a gridlock type of environment because they do dwell on deadlines and having things to a certain degree of correctiveness, so that way you'll be that much more prepared in real world. And that in itself couldn't have prepared me for what I was actually going to get into. Now, when we talk about the master courses, this was right around the time, because this was still during spring semester. This was right around the time the pandemic was about to hit, and nobody knew what was going to come. So I remember preparing to just, I guess, for social distancing and quarantine and figuring out what's going on. And it became a little bit of a challenge to, I ain't gonna say pass those classes, but to kind of figure out how the teachers were going to go about those courses for the ones I had face to face. I had a few online, so nothing didn't really change in that aspect. But I remember just like how everybody's going to do what's going to be next, just running around not knowing anything until things was actually able to kind of dwindle down and figure out, okay, this is our plan moving forward. And I was actually working at the time too, so a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces, just change in a different direction. But I can only say, just make a plan, know what you're going to do moving forward, be able to adapt during those times. So another one was that I would say is get your personal affairs in order, right? Once you get that acceptance letter, you're not going to want a lot of things to burden you as you go towards that path, because it's not going to do nothing but get worse, in my opinion, right? So once I had to get my personal affairs in order, I had to go through a split with my significant other, which at the time was a detrimental situation. But you also have to allow yourself to recover and understand why you will have to do those things. And for me, it was just a decision that had to be made in order for things to be better, because it didn't seem as if it was going to get better moving forward after all the work put into it. And that's not to say anything in a negative or malicious manner. It was just to say at that time it was not working. And we still have a respectable relationship to this day. So regardless, make sure you put your personal affairs in a position that could be managed and not so much just actually trying to eliminate it. Because if you eliminate it, then great. But all of them is not going to be eliminated. And even if you do, it's still going to be more at the end of the day. So just manage it how you need to and keep pushing forward in order to do what you need to do. Now, you got your personal affairs, and I had wanted to go into this. So with the first law school that I got accepted to in Oklahoma City, I knew I wanted to make a law school visit. I think it's important to get the feel for where you're actually going to go. And at least for me, because I had to get a feel for the sense of environment and know that, hey, is this school is going to allow me to make the impact that I want to in regards to moving forward, and actually when I finish here, is it going to leave, am I going to leave with the tools necessary in order to be that much more of a better attorney? And once I was able to meet there, I was greeted with the utmost respect. I was more so surprised how many staff members and faculty knew my name, and being able to walk around there, look at the changes of what was being done, the mission statement and what's moving forward, the dean's mission. I was like, okay, now I'm pretty much sold. And it was right up I-35, so it's not even a 3-hour trip if I don't stop. So I knew I was able to go back to Dallas at the drop of a dime if need be. But I wasn't in a rush to go back there because I knew I needed to take time to accomplish what I needed to. And then also what's important is scouting for somewhere to live. You're going to need somewhere to stay. And so if you don't find somewhere to stay, you don't want to wait to the last minute and you're trying to like pack up a lot of things and just move straight into a house at the moment where you're getting all this information that you need in order to start classes. And that was big for me. So I knew I wanted to buy a house. And you're able to actually look at where you're going to live before you actually move into there. Pictures seem all good online. We all know how filters work on social media, on the internet, and things like that. But it's also better to actually see it face to face. So I done had a few times where I had made house visits and it looked it perfectly cool on the virtual tour. But when you actually get there, you don't even need to see nothing past the front door. And that was big for me. So I was able to actually find a good location in Dale City, find me a house to where I knew I was going to nonetheless establish equity at the same time attending law school. And it's a great small environment. I was able to meet my state rep. I was able to meet council members. So it's very close and connect to individuals that have the most influence and authority in order to do things better and work within the community. So now that you got your housing established, you got your personal affairs in order, all of that, now you're looking at what to do afterwards, how to prepare, how you're going to go about certain things. This is when you would attend your seminars, your events at the law school in order to get better insight on what you need to do. So I remember I was on my phone on a Zoom call in a U-Haul, and I thought it was just going to be like an informational session, but it actually turned out to be like an introduction icebreaker kind of ordeal for the incoming 1L admitted students. Everybody got a chance to introduce themselves, and I was just thinking like, man, I got this U-Haul full of my personal items, and I'm gonna have to actually talk and take my phone off of camera, but oh well, so be it. So once I actually able to like introduce myself, I told them as a disclaimer, like, hey, I'm driving, but I'm safe. You know, I got my hands are free from my phone, which it actually wasn't. But they had made sure that everybody was able to include what they needed to as far as like advice and meeting each other and asking questions. And then they also had allowed us to actually recommend 2 books. And so 2 books that I recommended, especially like speaking to y'all at this time as well, is Na'im Akbar, New Visions for Black Men. And the second one would be The Now Habit. And the author's not in my head at this moment, but it's called The Now Habit. So that was pretty much insightful because I got a lot of book references from other people as well. One thing that I saw that my law school offered was the ability to start summer courses. And that was big for me because I'm like, okay, now I'm able to take like 1 or 2 classes, get the feel for law school, and able to know what I'm getting into in the fall. But what they did say is that you're going to take a 2nd year law class before you even take your 1-year law classes. So you're pretty much going there blindfolded of what to do and how to prepare. And it was a consolidated schedule because, mind you, like I said, this is COVID. So we had a 16-week course in 8 weeks, less than that. And it was 4 times a week, 4 days out of the week. It was about 2 hours. Nothing could prepare you to read for 30 pages a day for 4 days a week. So anything that I probably needed to do during that time had to get put to the side in order to prepare for those classes. And then also you get this thing about cold calls, or you hear this notion about cold calls and how intimidating it could be for others. And for me, that wasn't a big thing at all. I think my military experience pretty much kind of prepared me to be put on the spot at a moment notice. It could be a moment where you're just walking, minding your own business, thinking about who knows what, and all of a sudden you'll have an NCO or some high-speed officer just trying to put you in check. So I was already pretty much okay with being cold called. For those who don't know what cold calling is when a teacher will put you at the spot as a moment notice. So you could be in the classroom with all your other classmates, and then all of a sudden, just with no warning, they would say, hey, DJ, take us through the case. And you'll be like, okay, wasn't expecting that at all. And someone will actually just let you pretty much die on the spot. So if you didn't know the material, they're just going to sit there and look at you while you look at them, while they're looking back at you. And hopefully a classmate will be bold enough to interfere to help you go through some things. So that's why it's always important to read when you're prepared for class, because you never know when you're going to be cold called. Nonetheless, like, find a brief that you could actually summarize to get some point across to for the professor at least think they can understand what you're talking about. Now, once you read your pages or starting out, right, the first thing I wanted to do was look for students who could possibly be similar characteristics to me, which, mind you, I don't think there was going to be that many of that, because I make it a goal to be as authentic as I can, regardless in any scenario. So once I was able to get a feel for the class, get a feel for the professor, I realized things won't be the same after this. And now, once we had our first class, we was already expected to know the material. So it's not like a warm up, first day, grab your hand, let's go through this. It's like a, hey, what do you know? Take us through the case on your first day. And you like, I didn't even know how to actually approach the material in order to read it how I needed to understand it. And then what they tell you is that the English words that's actually in the book are not what they mean. So I'm actually reading English, but I don't understand how I'm supposed to take it into a conceptual manner in order to know what I'm talking about in class. But you still want to be able to prepare, ask questions for those who knows how to approach it. So that way you get better by the day. So that way, when you're getting cold called, nonetheless, you're able to at least recite the facts, recite the issues, and that already would give you a head start. So that was a huge thing. And I don't think I would have survived without the professor that we had, because he was able to like walk us through, but also cold call us and just wait. So some teachers, they'll actually cold call you and just let you take your time, walk through it, help you with the answers, supplement your answers in order to know what you're talking about. Not to give you too much about my summer class, because I did want to talk a little bit more on the next episode and how we get into the first weeks of classes. So for those who are tuned in right now, I just want to say I appreciate the time for you spending with me again, and stay tuned for episode 2. And again, this is DJ, and thank you for watching One L of a Fall, Law and Pandemic.